You open your banking app while standing in a grocery store line. You grab your cart tighter for a second because you already know the number before the screen even loads. And there it is again, a balance so low that one bad week could wipe it out completely. So you tell yourself the same thing. You've probably told yourself 100 times before, I just need to make more money. But here's the thing. The people who eventually build real wealth usually don't start with huge salaries. They start with one tiny milestone that changes the way they think forever. Your first $1,000. And weirdly enough, that first $1,000 is usually harder to build than the next. $10,000 after it. That sounds backwards, right? But think about a space shuttle for a second. A rocket uses most of its fuel just to leave the ground, not to reach the moon, not to travel millions of miles through space, just to escape gravity. After that, movement becomes dramatically easier. Building wealth works the exact same way. The hardest part is not becoming rich. The hardest part is escaping financial gravity. And this is the part most people miss. Your first $1,000 is not important because of what the money can buy. It's important because of what it proves to your brain. It proves you can stop reacting to money and start controlling it. Because right now, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, money probably feels emotional. Every purchase feels heavy. Every bill feels personal. Your car makes one weird noise and your entire mood changes instantly. You're not building wealth yet. You're surviving uncertainty. And survival mode changes the way your brain works. When your account stays near zero, your brain becomes obsessed with immediate relief. Fast food feels justified because you're exhausted. Online shopping feels deserved because work stressed you out. Tiny purchases don't feel dangerous because individually they aren't. But together, they keep resetting your financial progress back to zero. So when someone says just save money, it sounds simple. But emotionally, it doesn't feel simple at all. Because saving your first $1,000 is not just math. It's identity resistance. You're fighting years of habits, impulses, stress spending, and short-term thinking all at once. And at first, the rewards feel almost invisible. Let's say you finally save your first $1,000 and invest it. A good year in the stock market might give you a 10% return. That's only 100. Not life-changing. Not exciting. Not quit your job money, which is exactly why so many people quit early. They expect dramatic results from small beginnings. But wealth almost never looks impressive in the beginning stages. In fact, the beginning is painfully boring. You skip takeout. You cancel subscriptions. You say no to random spending. You move tiny amounts of money around that barely seem to matter. And for a while, your life looks almost exactly the same. That's where most people give up. Because humans are wired to continue behaviors that produce visible rewards. If you go to the gym for 2 weeks and see no change, motivation drops. If you save money for months and still feel broke, your brain starts questioning the process. Is this even worth it? But here's where it gets interesting. The first $1,000 is secretly doing something far more important than growing financially. It's rewiring your behavior. Every time you transfer money into savings instead of spending it, your brain starts building evidence. Evidence that you can delay gratification. Evidence that you can think long-term. Evidence that you are becoming someone who keeps promises to yourself. And once your identity changes, money habits become dramatically easier to maintain. That's why the first milestone matters so much. Not because of the number, because of the momentum. Momentum is powerful because money is emotional before it's mathematical. Most financial advice skips this completely. People throw giant investing terms at you. Index funds, compound interest, asset allocation, retirement accounts. But none of that matters if your financial life keeps restarting every month. Because before wealth can grow, stability has to exist first. And this is the part nobody talks about. When your savings are at zero, every emergency becomes a financial disaster. A flat tire goes on a credit card. A medical bill creates panic. Your phone breaks and suddenly your entire month collapses. That cycle keeps you trapped because debt steals future momentum before it even starts. So your first $1,000 does something incredibly important. It creates breathing room. And breathing room changes behavior. Think about physics for a second. A stationary object takes far more energy to move than an object already in motion. That's called inertia. Your financial life has inertia too. When you're stuck in paycheck-to-paycheck living, your habits naturally pull you towards staying there. Not because you're lazy. Not because you're bad with money. Because your environment keeps reinforcing survival behavior. You prioritize immediate comfort because your brain is exhausted. You avoid checking your bank account because stress feels uncomfortable. You spend first and figure it out later because future problems feel abstract. But once you build even a small financial cushion, the pressure changes. Now a surprise expense doesn't completely destroy you. Now you can pause before making purchases. Now you stop making desperate financial decisions. Stick with me here because this shift is bigger than it sounds. The first $1,000 often becomes the first moment you realize money can create peace instead of stress. That realization changes everything. Because before this stage, money feels temporary. It comes in and immediately leaves. Your account becomes a hallway instead of a home. But once savings start staying in place, your brain starts thinking differently. You stop asking, how do I survive this month? And start asking, how do I build next year? That's a completely different identity. And once your brain starts operating from long-term thinking, compound growth finally has space to work. Now look, $25,994 after 10 years might not sound exciting at first. But the point is not the final number. The point is that money started growing without requiring your physical labor every second. That's the moment wealth becomes possible. And here's where it gets really interesting. The habits required to save your first $1,000 are almost the exact same habits required to eventually save $100,000. Seriously, the person who automatically saves small amounts consistently usually beats the person chasing giant financial wins, because wealth is rarely built through intensity. It's usually built through consistency. That means your first $1,000 is actually a training ground. You're learning how to tolerate delayed rewards. You're learning how to separate wants from impulses. You're learning how to build systems instead of depending on motivation. And systems matter because motivation disappears constantly. Some days you'll feel disciplined. Other days you'll feel tired, stressed, frustrated, or behind in life. That's normal. The goal is not becoming perfect with money. The goal is building automatic behaviors that keep working even when emotions change. Which brings us to the practical part. How do you actually reach that first $1,000 without feeling miserable the entire time? Because most people fail when the process feels too extreme. So instead of trying to completely transform your life overnight, you need smaller moves that create invisible progress. The first strategy is something almost boringly simple. Automation. And honestly, automation is probably one of the most underrated wealth-building tools on earth. Because your brain can't spend money it never emotionally claimed. If you manually move money into savings every week, it feels painful. Your brain notices the loss immediately. But if $25 or $50 automatically transfers out the moment you get paid, something different happens. You adapt. Humans are incredibly good at adapting to slightly smaller spending limits. That's why automatic saving works so well. Not because it's magical, because it reduces decision fatigue. You stop debating yourself constantly. You stop negotiating every purchase emotionally. The system handles it for you. And this is the part most people underestimate. Tiny automatic transfers look insignificant in the beginning, but saving $25 every week gives you $300 in a year. That means your first $1,000 might not require some dramatic life transformation after all. It might just require consistency long enough for the math to finally become visible. But here's the thing. Automation alone usually isn't enough if your spending leaks are constantly draining progress. Which brings us to the second step, the audit. And no, this does not mean judging yourself for buying coffee. The internet loves turning money advice into guilt. That's not helpful. You do not need to become a robot to build wealth. But you do need awareness. Because most people have no idea where their money is actually going. Your brain remembers large purchases clearly. It remembers vacations, phones, big shopping trips. But financial damage usually happens through repetition, not explosions. A streaming subscription here, food delivery there, random impulse purchases at night when you're bored or stressed. None of them feel dangerous individually. But together, they quietly steal future freedom. So look at your last 30 days of spending honestly, not emotionally, just objectively. Ask yourself one simple question. What expense adds the least amount of happiness compared to what it costs me? That question changes everything, because now you're not sacrificing. You're trading low-value spending for future stability, and that mental framing matters a lot. People fail financially when saving feels like punishment, but saving becomes easier when it feels like buying freedom instead. Maybe canceling one unused subscription saves you $20 a month. Maybe cooking at home twice a week saves another $40. Maybe reducing random online shopping saves another $60. Suddenly, You're not far away anymore. And once progress becomes visible, motivation starts working in your favor instead of against you. That's the hidden power of the first milestone. Visible progress creates emotional momentum. You start checking your savings account differently. You feel slightly calmer during emergencies. You stop feeling completely fragile around money. And eventually something strange happens. You become protective of your savings. That's a major psychological shift. Because before this point, spending probably felt automatic. Now unnecessary spending starts feeling expensive emotionally. Not because you're cheap, because you finally have something you don't want to lose. And this is where the third strategy becomes powerful. The extra push. Sometimes your first $1,000 is closer than you think. There's probably something sitting in your room right now that you haven't touched in over a year. Old electronics, clothes, equipment, furniture, stuff. That used to feel exciting, but now mostly collects dust. Selling a few unused items can create immediate momentum. And momentum matters more than perfection early on. Or maybe you pick up one weekend freelance project, one delivery shift, one small side job. Not forever. Just temporarily to accelerate the milestone. Because speed matters psychologically. The faster you reach your first visible financial win, the faster your identity starts changing. And identity is the real game here. Here's where it gets interesting. Once you save your first $1,000, you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to save money. You start seeing yourself as someone who has savings. That sounds small. It's not. Identity drives behavior far more than motivation ever will. A person who believes they're financially responsible naturally makes different decisions than someone who believes they're always broke. That identity shift affects everything: how you negotiate salary, how you handle emergencies, how confidently you say no to unnecessary spending, how patient you become with investing, and eventually how calm you feel about your future. Because the real purpose of money is not impressing strangers, it's reducing fear. It's creating options. It's giving you space to think clearly instead of react emotionally all the time. So if you're still chasing your first $1,000 right now, do not minimize that goal. Seriously, you are not behind. You are building the hardest stage first. Remember the rocket analogy. The launch requires the most energy, not because the rocket is weak, because gravity is strongest at the beginning. Your financial life works exactly the same way. The first $1,000 is the foundation of your fortress. It's the first brick. And once that brick exists, the next one becomes easier. Then the next, until one day the thing that once felt impossible starts feeling normal. That's how wealth actually happens, slowly, quietly, then suddenly.